The assassination of John F. Kennedy is a lingering memory, and for many, an ongoing mystery. Millions still ask, who really killed JFK and why? Theories abound. The latest is a shocker. It places former FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover in a conspiracy with the mafia to murder the president.
It was no surprise that President Johnson reappointed Hoover. What has not been known is the part Hoover may have played in Johnson becoming president at all. Johnson enjoyed the secret support of J. Edgar Hoover and his files.
Lyndon Johnson told me that J. Edgar Hoover loathed and despised both Bobby Kennedy and President Kennedy, and that J. Edgar Hoover had extensive files on President Kennedy's womanizing.
Hoover's files may have helped him keep his job, but nothing could stop Bobby Kennedy's war on the mafia. And by now, even Hoover had been forced to do something about it.
How does Hoover come into the picture?
Hoover was, as the man in charge of the domestic surveillance and the heavy surveillance programs on the mafia, he picked this material up. He was in a box because Kennedy, for the first time under Kennedy's administration, Hoover was going to be retired, compulsory retirement under federal statute. John Kennedy was going to allow this to happen, and Hoover initially tried to blackmail Kennedy behind the scenes with a philandering. It failed. The opportunity arose with the mafia data coming in that the hit was shaping up. Simultaneously, Hoover had compromised Johnson through the Billy Celestis and the Bobby Baker scandal that was shaping up, and Johnson knew it. And Hoover saw the opportunity that John Kennedy were removed and Johnson replaced in power, then Robert Kennedy would lose his power and Hoover could leverage a retirement waiver, which he did.
Kennedy continued to make enemies as he pulled back from world confrontation. He put in the hotline to Moscow. He signed the nuclear test ban treaty. That shook up the military-industrial complex. He ordered U.S. troops out of Vietnam. That shook them up even more. But Kennedy was insistent. He wanted us out of Vietnam. He also decided he could no longer trust the CIA.
After the Bay of Pigs, Kennedy had decided to change the whole structures of how this government would carry out covert operations. And so he was transferring covert operations directly to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Shortly after that, he fired Alan Dulles, who had been the Director of Central Intelligence since 1953. That was a signal to the CIA of what Kennedy was going to do or what he had done.
Kennedy was changing the status quo.
As the forces hostile to Kennedy grew in strength and number, they began to think the unthinkable: assassination. Finally, a new imperative forced their hand.
Lyndon Johnson was in big trouble. The Bobby Baker scandal and the Billy Celestis scandal could destroy Lyndon Johnson's career. Lyndon Johnson would go to jail, and he was their man. He represented all these right-wing forces. There was an urgency to kill President Kennedy. They had to save Lyndon Johnson. The governor of Texas, first of all, is Lyndon Johnson's best friend in history. They went back decades together. In the 1948 vote scandal, John Connally was every much a part of that cover-up that took place. He was his campaign manager. It is without question John Connally who entices John F. Kennedy to Texas. Once they get him there, then they're in control of everything. Motorcade routes, the evidence, the Dallas police, everything. It's their land. It's their territory. Lyndon Johnson and his Texas cronies suckered President Kennedy to Texas.
So let us here tonight, each of us, all of us, rededicate ourselves to keeping burning the golden torch of promise which John Fitzgerald Kennedy set aflame.
Hoover found out almost immediately after the assassination, of course, that it occurred, and so he called Robert Kennedy out at Hickory Hill. He was having Kennedy was having a crime conference out there. And, he informed Robert Kennedy that the president had been shot and that I think he had been seriously wounded, and he said he'd call back when he got more information, and then he called back a short time later and simply informed Robert Kennedy very casually, very coolly that the president was dead, and that was the end of the conversation. And after that, from that time on, he would not deal with Robert Kennedy directly, just essentially dismissed him after that. The morning after the assassination, he presented Lyndon Johnson with a highly biased report that had very selective data in it that just simply was designed to implicate Oswald. Even before Oswald was even charged with anything, Friday afternoon, a few hours after the assassination, before Kennedy's body even arrived in Washington, Hoover had already dictated an internal memo, in essence saying that Oswald was guilty.
I positively know nothing about this situation here. I would like to have legal representation.
Yeah. What did you learn, though, that linked Hoover with the Mafia with the shooting?
All of the information that pointed to Oswald, the connections to David Ferry, Jack Ruby. These were men known to the FBI, and Oswald's connections, Ferry's connections in...
Do you think they set Oswald up?
I believe they did.
Do you think Oswald did the shooting?
No.
It charged that, quote, Lee Harvey Oswald did voluntarily and with malice aforethought kill John F. Kennedy by shooting him with a gun, end quote. Following the reading of the complaint, Oswald said,
"That's ridiculous."
There is Lee Oswald. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot.